They were not very active at the trade deadline. Not to say that it was a super active trade deadline in the NFL, but it doesn't feel like doesn't feel like they were tied to a lot of rumors or anything of that nature.
I think the only way that they would have gone out and gotten somebody, it would have had to been like a Montez Sweat opportunity. And
I like that.
Wow.
And that like, but the Montez Sweat thing last year was like, that's a rare thing that you're going to get a guy in his prime at a premium position.
You got to pay him though after.
And they had to pay him after. But I'd say the Bears, that worked out for the Bears, giving up like a high second round pick for a guy who's their best pass rusher. Like you do that, right?
Yeah.
So, you tell me where the opportunity was to go get somebody like that this year. That was really unique last year because he had a new owner. He knew he was firing everybody. And he basically ordered his general manager and his head coach, go get something for Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Chase Young, had a zillion injury issues, so you couldn't get as much for him. So Sweat was the one that was like, this is the rare opportunity for somebody, and good on the Bears for being aggressive and going and doing it, because those opportunities don't always come along at the trade deadline. And, it was like why Brian Burns 3 years ago was the Rams offered 2 first-round picks for him. Jalen Ramsey was traded at the trade deadline. I just don't know where that opportunity was available for anyone. The Patriots are the other 31 over the course of the last couple of weeks.
Tyquan Thornton?
What happened to all those teams that were calling on him? What happened there?
Yeah, what's Rosina talking about?
They got calls on him. Believe it or not, you can't. Yeah, you can't.
Family members.
Beetle, you're a coach yourself. You can't coach speed.
No, you
draft fast
can't.
guys. You got to.
No, you
Draft fast guys. You got to draft.
I'll bet you, Beetle. Let some things go with the real fast kid on his team. I'll bet you let some.
I just want to know the teams. I just want to know the teams that called. Were they in the Canadian Football League?
Fast kid shows up like 3 minutes. 3 minutes later. Hey, we're good. We're good.
Were they Canadian? Were they flag football team? They got that new flag football team in Boston. Was it who called on him? And here's my second guess at the deadline. How is it that they didn't move KJ Osborne off this roster?
I thought
find someone they could take because he should be out of here. They should get him out of here. And I even suggested yesterday. I'd cut him. I'd let him loose. I'd say, you don't want to be here? It didn't work. See you later.
You want to talk about doing somebody dirty is if you cut them after the trade deadline, because then they can't choose their team.
They have to go on waivers.
Yeah,
do it now.
Yeah, so cut them now.
Hey, you want to go elsewhere?
I feel so awful by doing that. Yeah.
I'd feel terrible. I really would. Between him and Tyquan Thornton, I don't know which one I would cut first, but they're not contributing. And when you say, well, they're depth pieces, are they? I mean, I'm at the point with this team where they should be picking guys up who are not on a team and haven't been on a team this year, Hunter Renfrow, and I'd be picking up anybody off a practice squad, just guys you can bring in and say, let me see what you got. Maybe there's something there. Use it as some sort of developmental period between now and the end of the season. Javon Baker, you can't line up. I don't care. Get out there. You've got to figure it out, and I'm even willing to take bad penalties to get you out there to see what you have, because if you can't play, we're not going to hang on to you next season either. We have to find receivers. We cannot be taking up roster spots with guys we're uncertain about if they can even play.
I had an interesting conversation about that with actually some Ravens people today, because they had
Harbaugh,
like Clowney's out there, right? So Clowney's out there,
yeah,
and Clowney was available, and just talking to their people, they. For them, it was like, well, we have these young guys and we want to find out. And that's a good team.
Right.
But their logic was, maybe Clowney gives us a slightly better level of production right now, but we have, Odafe Owe and David Ajabo and Adisa Isaac and these guys that we've drafted the last few years. And so does it really make sense for us to get in the way of their progress by introducing this veteran who might not be that much better anymore into the equation? And I think that's where the Patriots are the rest of the year. You have to start asking some of those hard questions, which is, do we keep playing KJ Osborne? Do we want Kendrick Bourne out there, or do we want to find out about Javon Baker? Do we want to have a solid idea of what's on our roster coming out of the year? I think that's sort of where you're at right now, right? You want to know which ones of these guys can play to kind of start to get ready to build for 2025.
Well, it looks like they whiffed in the draft again. So let's talk a little bit more about the draft and if Drake May's presence on the field has added more pressure to the coaches and maybe even more to the front office. Bert, I think it's come into view that the Patriots did a pretty terrible job on this roster for 2024. And I think Drake May doesn't help the front office's case. I think he's highlighting how bad the rest of the talent is on the team around him. His presence and the ability to watch someone who's good on the team
Totally agree.
highlights how bad everybody else is when he's out there.
22-year-old.
The ability to have to keep
Yeah,
a play
I mean,
alive for 12 seconds to have that game-winning score is just, to me, a sign of how bad they are.
He's already the best player on the team.
Not even close. I think you're right.
I said that Sunday.
It's so
Simmons.
obvious.
Yep.
It's crazy. I mean, like that we would be sitting here with a kid who, like, when you remember how we were talking about him in April, like, a lot of teams would have planned for him not to be playing right now if they had drafted him. Like the Giants, the Vikings, they wouldn't have been playing him right now. And he's the best player on your team. So, it's obviously they had a long way to go. Roster-wise, and you don't want to give up on the rookies yet. Like Jalen Polk, I still think can be a really good player. Layden Robinson has shown some potential to be something. So
He's tough.
You don't want to give up on the guys. But based on where they are right now, and what they did in the offseason, and it goes beyond. Like I've said this, like in defense of them, that it's really hard to fix multiple premium positions at once, and they had holes at premium positions, and you can't just wave a magic wand and in one offseason take care of them. That's why this was always going to be a 2 or a 3 offseason rebuild. That said, there are other issues when you look in the roster where it's like, okay, like this shouldn't look this way, and you can look at some of the investment too. Like that's part of it also. Like I said this at the beginning of the year. They reinvested in a lot of like Bill specific type players, like the hybrids, the Kyle Duggars, the Jabril Peppers, like, and I'm not saying that those guys, and obviously Peppers is a separate issue now, but the Marte Mapu is a high draft pick. Like, do you have too many of those? Have you built the roster sound in that way? Because a lot of those guys were specific to what Bill wanted to do, and now you're not playing great defense.
Have we figured out what kind of team they want to be?
No, I don't think
Do they have
so.
an identity in terms of what type of players they want?
And that's what, like, that to me is like, that is like where, like, one of my biggest criticisms of Gerard and the staff would be like, so I agree with him when he says, like, the way we won in Cincinnati is unsustainable. However, that's the narrow path you have to victory. And it just felt like over the weeks after that, they were just wildly pulling levers and like, let's be this or let's be that or let's try this or let's try that. And you give them credit for making the effort, but at some point you need your foundation. And I don't know that even now we can look at it and say, yes, here's what they do well. Yes. Here is when they're in trouble, what they go to. When they're in 3rd and long, when they're in 4th and short, like here's what they go to. And even the defense, like what's the identity of the defense? Like, well, like the defense is not doing a lot of things that Bill's teams did well, right? So getting beat over the top, getting beat in the run game, being in the wrong gaps, some of the silly, like the Keon White type penalties, like it's just. So I think that would be a fair criticism that the identity of the team isn't there. And again, like I think it was there in that Cincinnati game, but for one reason or another, you refuse to stay on that narrow path you have to winning games
Because
you don't think you can beat other teams that way.
you just don't believe in it?
Yeah, I think it's that you don't. It's not that you don't believe in that way of playing. It's that you don't believe. It's like. It's like they're trying to be a matchup team and change week to week. That's a really hard thing to do. Like what Bill accomplished here,
Yeah.
I think one of the most underrated things that Bill accomplished, and it's still, I think this will stand as one of like the things that you'll look back on and be like, I can't believe they could do that. The idea of switching who you are every week is borderline impossible to do. And Bill was able to do it at an effective level for the better part of 24 years. It is really, really hard to be like this chameleon team.
That's what McVay told him. You're getting this from McVay.
But it's true though, right?
Oh, he's right.
It's true.
Well, no, you could
it's
play. They could play a game on Sunday, and 3 days later in practice, they're running a completely different look than what they
That's
had.
impossible.
And they were so
really
well
hard.
schooled. It's
crazy.
But like the whole buttoned up part of it too. That's
So
the biggest
trying that,
difference.
but it's not working. They've tried
Right.
that, but it doesn't
Well,
work.
do you know what the problem is? Is that they don't have the coaching that they had, right? They don't have that level of coaching. They'll never have Bill from a defensive standpoint. They don't have it. There's nobody in the
encyclopedia.
league who's going to be Bill
No.
when it comes to that. And they also are now looking for those players that are really smart and versatile. Both, you know, that's the mental element and then the physical versatility, right? The Marte Mapu guys, like, oh, he's so big, but he can also, you know, move. And it's like, yeah, well, I got an idea. Just get the most talented player,
right?
because you're not going to do what Bill.
Go get the
had done.
conventional. Go get the conventional. Like it's your.
As I like to say,
Round
Bert,
peg,
I've been
round
saying it about Bill for many years. Sometimes it's okay to go back to playing checkers instead of chess. And now I want this team playing checkers all the time.
Go get a left tackle. Go get a pass rusher. Go get a corner. Go get a receiver.
Yeah. I want them to be a checkers team now. No more chess. You guys are not good at playing chess. You have to think too long. Clock is ticking. So go back to just being the checkers master. That's all you need to be. And,
I mean,
and I think if they had done that in the draft, they would be better off.
Right.
Yeah.
They would.
Like the Super Bowl, though. Bill knew that his defense is so buttoned up, and from the communication standpoint, that 15 seconds left on that clock, they can't talk to Jared Goff anymore. So we're just going to float. Wait until the 15 goes, then we're going to call our defense and adapt. And they were ready for that.
Yep.
McVay had no answer for it.
Yeah. And
Scored 3 points.
and it's again, like I think it's one of those things you can have an appreciation for Bill on. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah. And this team should not be trying to replicate him in that
No,
sense. And
no.
but I need them to figure out what it is they're going to be as a defense and what kind of personnel they need to fill out that defense in the vision that they have for it. And that might be my bigger problem. Who within the organization has a vision for the team, for how they play, stylistically on defense, what they want this offense to be long term? And I don't think it's Alex Van Pelt and what they're running now, because I got a lot more to say on that. We'll get to that coming up. That's a problem. Where's the vision, both personnel-wise and on the field? And that has not been established, and that's something you
the
start.
checkers thing.
You can start working toward that even when you are a bad team.
Yeah.
The checkers thing, it's go get your left tackle. Go get your pass rusher. Find people who can win.
So you had the pass
one-on-one,
rusher in Barmore.
regardless of what.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but you're,
But right now, Gonzalez is the only superstar that you
I
have
got
on
one.
and
defense,
again,
that's debatable.
you can't fix all of that at once. But
Do you
like
know that the Washington Commanders not only found their quarterback in this draft, but they also got a left tackle who's playing and playing well and played particularly well on Sunday?
They
Brandon
were worse
Coleman,
than you
yeah.
a year ago.
Yeah.
You know when he was taken in the NFL
third
draft?
round.
Yeah, where though?
Right before the Patriots. I'm not
One
sure.
pick ahead of Caden Wallace in the draft. So when everyone was whining about, what do you want them to do? I don't know. Find a way to trade up 3 spots.
I would look
and
at
identify a guy.
I would look at the other left tackles there though that were in that range, like Kingsley Matiao. I can't pronounce his name. The Chiefs guy at left tackle has already been benched. Tyler Guyton's been awful at left tackle for the Cowboys. So, like, yeah, the Commanders found one, but your hit rate when you get down into the third round of that position is pretty low. It's hard to find one.
I'm just telling you, the Commanders identified their guy
got
and found
one.
their
Yeah, they
guy. He
got
had a
one.
huge day on
Yeah.
Sunday against Brian Burns, who you mentioned last segment. So they were able to do it. And that's why the Commanders are in the position they're in, and maybe that's why the Patriots are in the position
Yep.
that they're in.
Yeah, it's hard to find one like that. That's for sure.
Why are you holding out hope on the wide receivers? You know how it goes in this league now, Bert. They perform right away, or they typically end up being mediocre to bust.
I think Polk is going to be fine. I think he's like, to me, I like look at him and he's not. I don't think he's ever going to be number one.
Say, what's his ceiling?
I mean, I think he's like a really good possession receiver. Like I think he can be a number 2. And
How's Baker going to get better if he doesn't play? Like, my point is,
And that's-
play him, get rid of
yeah.
Osborne. They just cut him.
And Baker brings an element, like if you're not getting the downfield element out of Thornton, which is why you drafted him, and like you just aren't getting that from him, why not try it with Baker? Because that's what Baker was drafted to be too. And Baker's somebody who ostensibly has a relationship with May because he's one of the guys that May was working with off to the side before he became the starter.
Hey, if you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand right here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.